Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Roll for Priority, our new kind of wargaming, skirmish gaming, mostly MCP, but this week not, podcast. Today I'm joined once again by Alex and Reid. How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's
Pretty
going
good.
good.
Alrighty. So yeah, we have a fun topic for this one. As we mentioned in our first episode, we're going to try to alternate between kind of MCP specific topics and more general wargaming ones. So this is our general wargaming topic, and we're going to be talking about game mechanics that we really like from game systems that we'd like to see implemented in other game systems, and we can talk about different ones that have kind of done different versions of them and which ones we like more and why. And yeah, I think it'll just be an interesting discussion on kind of some of our favorite game mechanics, and then hopefully you guys can all jump in the comments there with some of your guys' favorite mechanics and things you guys wish were in more war games. So we'll make this easy. I'll go ahead and start with one of mine. The one I wanted to talk about today is damage grids. Specifically, I'm going to be referring to the ones from BattleTech, which is probably the most like convoluted and in-depth version of them. But basically the idea of when you take damage, it's not just a number that goes down. You actually have like an array of where you can take damage, and if your arm takes too much damage, that arm might be less effective, so any weapons that were in it don't work as well. You could take damage to a leg, you're slower now, or other things that could impact the game in different ways depending where you were allocated damage. And yeah, I think this is probably one of my favorite mechanics to see in war games, just kind of in general. I think BattleTech takes it to the extreme, but there are some other examples of it. We have stuff like War Machine, which obviously Reid and I used to play a lot of on the channel, where you kind of have just a small grid, and there's systems on there, but it's not like BattleTech where you're always hitting kind of, this is you've hit the arm, so you're going to hit something in the arm. That one is kind of, you hit the grid and you're going to hit something. So yeah, what do you guys think on this mechanic? What are some examples of it you guys have seen and things you guys might like or dislike about it?
As a big Chaos Knights player in 40K,
Yep.
I see this a lot in the vehicles in both versions of Warhammer, Age of Sigmar and 40K. Although it's a lot more simplified, more number go down kind of way, just kind of damage profiles.
Yeah,
Um,
Warhammer does the like really simplified. If you've taken damage, all your stats are weaker rather than saying like specific sections of you are weaker now.
yeah, and they do some like creative stuff. There's quite a few. I believe it's like corn demons who will get stronger as they get more damaged, and stuff like that. But I do think that stuff like the way more similar to the way BattleTech does it could go a long way, especially for things like knights in 40K.
Yeah, that would be super cool on Knights, honestly. Like I don't really play 40k at all, but that would be a really cool mechanic to have for Knights especially, I think. What about you, Reed? Is there any systems you can think of that use this sort of thing? Obviously, I mentioned War Machine already.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only system I play with those types of damage grids. I mean, beyond Warhammer, but that was also mentioned.
Yeah, no, fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, it's a cool mechanic. And my experience in War Machine is sometimes is a bit too easily mitigated by like engineers and stuff like that.
Yeah, War Machine also had the
Like
real
heals
big
it.
problem with the War Beasts, where they were so ridiculously easy to heal that it really didn't matter. It was either dead or it was fine.
Yeah, that bit was a bit problematic. I also prefer the damage grids when you're able to like actually kind of direct where the damage is going a bit more. Like War Machine was very random for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
I will say BattleTech's not less random.
I'd argue that a little bit because BattleTech does it off the 2d6 system, so you're always more likely to hit center mass, and then everything else from there is kind of spread out. So you
True,
do
and
have that.
there is also the direction you're attacking from that can
Yeah, if
influence
you've
it as well.
been if you've been laying a lot of heat on say the left side of them just by, the way things have been going, you can definitely position your mechs on that side to get kind of higher odds of doing more damage there. So I do like that BattleTech has kind of, they also have aim shot is a thing, but I think the target has to be mobile or something like that for it. So it doesn't come up too often, but it is a thing as well. So yeah, no, I think like BattleTech obviously has it to the degree where like it's it's one of the core mechanics of the game, I would say. Whereas something like War Machine did it on a very light way, and like Reid said, it's very easy to kind of mitigate it, and to the point where it's almost irrelevant in a lot of ways. Um, and then Warhammer does it just kind of, for the most part, in the most boring way you could do it, instead of actually
It's a
having
very
like,
passive way, yeah.
yeah, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
things get worse over time. I think of like what Legion used to do with, because Legion now has the um after you've taken your certain damage threshold on a vehicle, you have basically a pseudo stagger. It's like a 50% stagger on every turn.
Yeah, you just
Um
lose one of your actions.
yeah, whereas before what Legion had was you rolled a die and you could get that exact effect where you lose one of your actions. You could get, I believe it was like a weapons destroyed, and there was something else. I think it was like maybe a movement thing. I'm not 100% sure what the third one was, honestly. But there
I'm
was like
pretty sure it
three
was a movie.
options. It was a
I'm
movement thing.
almost certain it was, but I feel like every time I got that, you just blew up one of the weapons on my ATSTs.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Um yeah, like,
That is the worst.
yeah, and now they've basically said like it's always just a 50%, or I don't know if it's quite 50, but a chance at a stagger. Um and I think actually if I was gonna put it in a game, I mean, Alex, you already mentioned kind of revamping the 40K one to make it cooler for knights, and I totally agree there. But if I had to
Hmm.
pick one game that like I really would love to see a more advanced damage grid system in, it would absolutely be Legion, because I think like that would be cool, being able to go into an ATST and be like, okay, we're gonna, go for the legs, we're gonna go for the weapons, whatever you need to do to try and take that down. I think you could do a lot with their vehicle, a few of their different vehicle types for that one.
Absolutely. And because the vehicles in that are so varied, you could have some very interesting damage grids.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I think so
attacking
for
an
sure.
ATST is very different versus a speeder
Yeah.
versus a tank versus I don't know if we want to count the dewbacks as getting damage grids, but I think that could be interesting.
Dewback could actually be really interesting. Like, did you hit the rider or did you hit the Dewback?
Oh, actually, I
um,
love that.
yeah. What about you, Reed? Are there any that you think, any games you've played that you think could benefit from having a more robust damage system for their larger lads?
Well, see, this do back conversation has me thinking now. If a game, not quite MCP, because I like the system as it is, but like a game like MCP where it's like a kind of like a fighting game with like heroes or what have you,
Sure.
where you have like a damage grid on the body. So like arms can be like disabled or like knees can be like taken out and stuff like that, and it has like different impairments on the body of the characters. I think would
Interesting.
be kind of cool.
Yeah, like, well,
It's kind of
actually,
yeah,
you know what might have something like that already? I'd have to look more into it, but I think there's a chance the Fallout system might even have like leg injury, head injury, arm injury. Because like that's totally a thing
yeah,
in the Fallout
exactly. Yeah,
games. I could see that translating into the at the very least your like your power armors in the Fallout miniatures game.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that could be an interesting one. But yeah, so that was my first pick. I think damage grids are just one of my favorite things. I always think they're so much fun, and I think I wish War Machine had utilized them a little bit better. But then playing BattleTech is like, yeah, this game takes like 2 hours to play, just a short game, but also these grids are really cool, and it's really really exciting when you get to start rolling for criticals and be like, yeah, I've damaged your shoulder, and here's all the things that means. Is just like, I don't know. It definitely slows the game down, but it also leads to some really, really unique and interesting games. Um, so that's my first pick there. But I think we actually have kind of a natural segue into one of yours there, Reed, where we were talking about the dewback and the guy being shot versus the dewback being shot.
Yeah.
Because you had one you wanted to bring up from specifically, I believe you're coming from the Middle Earth strategy battle game there. So what's yours
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put it in the general category of transform mechanics, where like a miniature, uh, basically becomes a new model. Like you put down a different model, and it gets like different like stats, I guess. Um, and the reference I was using is the Middle Earth strategy battle game, where models can be dismounted from their mounts. So like if
Interesting.
you are riding a horse, like in Alex's example, he brought up with the dewback, if an arrow shot at you, there's a chance you hit the horse or the rider, and if you're a better archer, you can actually, I believe, actually aim for the horse or the rider. And if the horse gets taken out, there's a chance the rider can continue fighting on foot. Same for some of the mounts, actually. Like the wargs, which are like feral wolves, can sometimes fight without their riders if their riders get killed.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely an interesting one. I mean, we already you already kind of drew the connection to like the transform mechanic in MCP, where we kind of have voluntary ones, like you've got your Miss Marvel, your Ant-Man, those characters, and then we also have the involuntary one like Hulkbuster, where it's like I guess Hulkbuster is probably the closest equivalent to like my mount's been taken down and now I'm weaker or different at the very least.
Yep. Actually, the
Um,
mount mechanic, you could also, I believe, choose to dismount if you wanted to as well.
Yeah, that was the other interesting thing was
Yeah.
because you were mentioning the ability to choose to dismount, and I think that would be another one that would potentially be interesting in something like Legion, where like your dewback rider can be
Man,
like, you know
where's
what?
our Hulkbuster who can
Sorry.
where's our Hulkbuster who can voluntarily get out of the Hulkbuster suit just to flex on you?
Why would you do this to yourself?
No, I'm struggling to think of a reason why. Is little Tony range
Does he keep
4?
his power when he flips?
No.
Darn.
No.
Okay, never mind.
No, he would actually be really good if he did. Okay. Yeah, so no, I think that is a good one though, because that is a somewhat underutilized mechanic. I think MCP has an interesting version of it with the transform mechanic. That works for MCP because MCP doesn't exactly have many characters mounted on something, although that could be cool for Ghost Rider. What about
Oh,
other
yeah.
games? What else
Or
do we have?
Malekith, honestly.
Like Alex, have you
Ooh, that's
seen
cool too.
any systems that have that type of mechanic before?
I gotta say, the transform in at Marvel Crisis Protocol is probably the closest I've seen to it in any system I've played. Um, I do like it conceptually. I do have to ask from like a hobbying perspective, if you have like Warg Riders, do they also like do the models come off, or do you have to like magnetize
Um,
it?
So when you buy Warg Riders, if I remember correctly, you get the Warg Riders and you also get some orcs on foot. The issue is though, is you if you want wargs to have them dismounted, you need to buy a separate box of feral wargs.
Interesting.
Uh,
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
it
know if
requires a bit more work to get it, but yeah.
yeah, I think it's a fun like hobby project, like magnetizing the riders or something. But
Yeah, there definitely is that
I
concern of how much plastic is in the box.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
does become an issue of like I could totally see it, especially in a larger scale war game like that. Like you show up to a game and you're like, cool, I've got 30 warg riders, which means I've also got 30 feral wargs and 30 orc dudes who are on standby, waiting to see if one of these guys gets killed on the off the warg, and then none of
Although
them
I
get
do
shot the whole
believe
game.
Or even
I do believe you
voluntarily.
you can still probably magnetize. You probably are correct. Like for the like actual wargs you can magnetize. For the guys on
Sure.
foot you will need separate models for sure.
Yeah.
Because they gotta stand.
What do you mean you don't want
I
them
do.
all like just kind of in that crouch pose? They're just
It's
squatting.
because they just fell, man.
You
I mean,
have
I'd
all
be fine if a player showed up with that.
your army of
It's kind of
squatting
funny.
orcs just slowly walking up the board. That'd actually be kind of
Or-
amazing. I want
that
I
would be
want that now.
hilarious.
Okay. So yeah, can we think of other games where we'd want to see this implemented? I mean, there's a couple examples I can think of, like actually our dewback discussion. That would be kind of interesting if
Yeah.
the rider could choose to dismount. But do we have anything else that would
Or
be interesting for that?
I actually love the idea of like knocking the rider off of the dewback and then having another stormtrooper get on
Sure. Yeah.
and
That'd be
just take over.
That would
That could
actually
be
be really
cool.
interesting. Well, that again works with the like idea of having the chance to hit the rider and chance to hit the dewback of like, yeah, you can kill the rider and now the dewback is just gonna like wander because it's not actually loyal to the Empire, but you can send another stormtrooper over there and have him mount up.
Whoa, how dare you imply that about the dewback? It is a loyal servant of the Emperor.
It's a loyal servant to its rider, unless that rider is the Emperor and he's out of the game now.
Wow,
Yeah, I
too
went there.
soon.
I went there. But anyways, yeah. Like, what about, I don't know, are there other games we think that could be a cool mechanic? We might actually see it in Legion soon because we're getting mounted Tauntaun Rider Han and Luke, I think, is something that's coming.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
love it if they could dismount in that. Yeah.
That would be cool. But
I'm struggling to think of another game that I would really like to see this in,
I actually think
because
it
like
could. Oh, go ahead.
my first thought is Shatterpoint, but I'm really struggling to think of a person who would do that in terms of Star Wars.
We get Grievous
Yeah.
on his bike, his wheel bike.
Grievous on the wheel bike.
And Obi-Wan on the shoot, what's it called? The lizard thing.
The thing what with the one voice line? Yeah,
Yeah,
that thing.
yeah, that thing. Um, no, that's the first things I can think of for Shatterpoint, or if we ever get Tauntauns, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, the other one I was thinking almost actually would be I could see a handful of models having a cool mechanic like that for HeroScape. I'm even just thinking like
Ooh,
new Sonlin
Yeah.
riding on the back of his dragon.
I actually do dig that.
Yeah, like something like that
Although
could have been really cool.
Galaxy Brain Shatterpoint idea, you get a box and it's a transforming Yoda who goes from Yoda to Force Ghost Yoda.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. As we get more into the idea of transform mechanics and less specifically mounts, I think there's tons of cool things you can do in a few different IPs. But
Yeah,
like that would actually be a really neat one of like, hey, here's my Obi-Wan model, whether it's Shatterpoint, Legion, whatever. When he dies, I get Force Ghost Obi-Wan, and now he's like a support piece.
yeah.
Like that could actually be really cool. So yeah,
Yep.
no, that would be interesting. Although I don't know how you do that in Shatterpoint because Shatterpoint, I guess you say like while he has one or two wounds or something because they're just gonna most models don't actually die in that game. But
I don't know,
Well,
man. I've
you
been
could give
playing a
it
lot of
wonder.
aggression teams lately. I've been killing quite a few things.
Yeah,
yeah,
just give it one durability, then go flip your stack card, or switch out the stack card when it dies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that could work. Alrighty. So yeah, mounts is definitely a cool one, and I'm actually really curious to hear what anyone watching thinks about that one and like what other games might be able to utilize the more transform and or mount mechanics in interesting ways. So definitely sound off below if that's something that you have any ideas for. But let's move on
I also
to
sorry, I have one more comment before we switch off of
yeah, of
this.
course.
Oh,
I've thought of an idea for Shatterpoint.
Oh no.
Mounted
okay.
Luke with Yoda on his
Oh, with
back.
Yoda on
Let's
his
go. Let's go.
I wouldn't actually be terribly surprised to see that as a model, but I don't think the Yoda would come off. I think it would be one model.
That's quitter talk. I will magnetize that Yoda.
That'd be so funny.
No, that would actually be fantastic. I would be so down for that. Alrighty.
Yeah, that's my last note.
No, that's a good one to end that topic on. All right, Alex, over to you. Which one do you want to talk about first of yours? You had a couple interesting ones.
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is actually a really interesting one to try and think about applying to other games. But I really want to talk about grid movement because I think it's really underutilized in a lot of games. They tend to go more towards real like inches measurement or movement tools, at least in the games that I've been playing.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely.
I really like grid movement. I think it makes games a lot more approachable for newer players and lowers a lot of skill gap in terms of people who are just better at eyeballing distances, especially in games where you're not allowed to pre-measure stuff or you're restricted on pre-measuring stuff. And I think it opens up a lot of like open information. You kind of know what's going on gameplay that I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I'm very torn on that one because on one hand I love the freedom of being able to be like this is exactly where my model is. He could be anywhere on this board, and this is where he is. Not like he's not confined to one of however many legal positions exist on the board. There's basically an infinite number of positions he could be in, and it leads to really precise positioning, which I'm definitely a fan of. Obviously, X4 machine player and MCP has a lot of those notes as well. But on the other hand, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's a lot more approachable for newer players. It's a lot faster most of the time to have a grid.
Absolutely.
There's definitely pros and cons to it, but there's certainly a lot of upsides. Reed, I have a
And
feeling you're kind of with me where you like the thing, but what's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
No, I'm in the same boat. I generally do prefer having like movement tools and everything like that over grid movement. But I have seen some examples of grid movement used well. Like if you, I don't know if you guys ever played Warhammer Underworld.
I've not.
Um,
I've played it once.
yeah, that game's pretty fun. It's kind of like on a hex grid,
Hmm.
and you like move your models around the board, and you play cards that give them like attacks or like abilities and stuff. And that one I think used the hex grid pretty well. Like it was pretty clean, it was snappy, and it's like kind of like it's a faster game, like 20 minutes, I
Sure.
believe, to get
Yep.
a game done.
Yeah, Underworld's
So
one that I've
I like
been
it in those
tempted to
games.
try before. Yeah, no, that makes sense,
It's
and I think that's kind of its main market, right? Is the snappier, faster playtime games. Sorry, Alex, I cut you off there.
Yep. Oh, it's fine. What I was gonna say was a big part to me, and this is something that Jason can personally relate to, especially when it comes to X-Wing, the X-Wing miniatures game, is a lot of the time in these very free-form movement games, if you nudge something, it kind of ruins things. Like
True.
if you move your hand too far to the left one time, or you sneeze while holding onto the table, like you can just mess up the game state, and grids do allow for kind of easily fixing that.
That's 100% true. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, we used to joke about it, but it wasn't really a joke when Reed and I played a lot of War Machine that the best way to play War Machine was digital because you didn't have to worry about that, and the game cared so much about like millimeters of movement. So, yeah, no, you're
Mhm.
absolutely correct. That is definitely one of the big downsides to not having grid-based systems. I do think there's some interesting kind of middle grounds that we've seen recently, specifically with Flashpoint. Obviously, I know the Dead Zone system came first, so I'm crediting Flashpoint for it, but actually the system was around longer than that. Um, but you have the cubes that you move into, so it's still like a grid. You know how far your opponent's going to be able to get in terms of like coming into melee or something like that. But because of that cube system, you have the ability to place your model wherever you want in the cube. So you still have important positioning for things like cover and line of sight, but it's also extremely open information. I think it's kind of a neat best of both worlds sort of situation.
I was going to say that Flashpoint was absolutely in my notes as my best and most favorite application of the grid system because of that
Yeah.
decision making within your positioning within that grid square. I really enjoy the combination of snappiness and flexibility.
Yeah. No, I think it works really well. It's a really clean system. Of course, it does go back to having, to a lesser degree, but having that issue of, oh, we knocked the model and we got to get it back as close to the best spot it was before. But it's not going to matter as often because you're not measuring millimeters. It's more just like line of sight, and maybe he was poking out of the corner,
Absolutely.
maybe he wasn't, you know?
Hmm.
But at that point, you can just grab a laser line, which solves
Yeah.
most of your issues in
Yeah.
pretty much any grid-based game.
Man, we should all just own a laser line.
I
I don't know
had
why I
one
don't
I
and
own
I,
one.
I, I, I do own one, I think. Yeah.
I
Oh,
had one,
wait,
but it
did
just
we?
stopped working.
I was gonna say, are we all in the boat of we all owned a laser line that just stopped working? The most relatable hobby experience.
Sounds like it.
I believe I lost mine, but
Wow.
Wow,
sure.
wow.
Well,
Also a relatable hobby
you
experience.
know what, Reed? It probably also doesn't work anymore. So there you go. Um,
Yeah, you might be right.
okay, so let's talk about obviously to add or remove a grid system from a game totally changes the way that game is going to play, and it's an entirely
Absolutely.
different game at this point. But what sorts of games would you like? What sorts of games have you played where you're like, man, this would have been smoother if they had went for a grid system?
It's a more recent thing I played, but there's a skirmish game called Malediction that's
Sure.
a combination of cards and miniatures. And I think that that game could probably be a lot snappier and more interesting on a grid simply because of. I think that the game alternates wildly between the very precise timing of a card game and the very freeform inches based movement of a skirmish game. And
Interesting.
it's I think it could. I think it could do for a grid. The problem is, like you said, it does kind of overhaul the entirety of a game,
Oh yeah, any game
right?
that's gonna have a grid or not have a grid really needs to be designed with that in mind.
Yeah, it's difficult to apply it to a specific game. I think that a lot of beginner style skirmish games, like Reed said, Underworlds or could do well with a grid system. I would like to see it in games, not actually these games, but games like Warcry or Kill Team, where
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna
aimed at
say
getting
Warcry.
people into the hobby.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting one. Yeah, I think I definitely do agree though that I like it a lot for games that are gonna be good for new miniature gamers because I think it makes it a lot easier to kind of come into it just from a if you're playing against somebody who's been playing these games for years, they are an expert at eyeballing inches, and
Absolutely.
that was very much a problem War Machine used to have, right? Of like these players first of all are doing back when War Machine didn't allow pre-measuring, these players are doing trig to find out the distance that they need, and they know exactly what they need versus the new guy who's like, sorry, I didn't brush up on my trig before coming to play this game. Um, so,
You guys are
yeah,
not doing a great job selling War Machine right now.
That
old
was
War
Mark
Machine
II.
had
We
Oh,
problems.
okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, old War Machine had
it's got
serious
other problems
problems.
now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, the biggest news in this in miniature board gaming would be if they invented a game without problems, honestly.
Well, we are all
Yeah,
wargamers, so there's going to be two things that we hate the most, and that's change and the way things are.
Absolutely.
And yeah, War Machine was definitely one of those for Reed and I have like that we acknowledged so many problems it had, and then it changed, and we were like, wait, we don't like this either. Hold up. Um,
yeah.
for different reasons, we had totally different things that pushed us away from it, but um, anyways, alrighty. So yeah, I think that's the grids is definitely an interesting one, and I think more and more we're seeing games designed with the grid in mind that are meant to be these kind of faster paced, easier to jump in games, and I think overall that's actually been really, really beneficial to the hobby. So I'm definitely on board with seeing more of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic here. So for me, I feel like I've talked way too much about the Star Wars games in terms of mechanics that I want to see in them, but I'm going to be doing that some more with destructible and throwable terrain, something that MCP might be the first game I've played that really has that. There are elements of it in other games, but to the degree that MCP has, I think it's really, really cool, really unique to MCP, and one of those things that you kind of hear about people getting into the game because it's such a cool concept that really should be in more games. The idea of just like, yeah, Hulk's just gonna pick up this building and toss it at you is just really cool. Like, yeah, he can do that. He's the Hulk. That makes sense. So there are other cases of it. BattleTech has like destructible buildings and you can turn them into rubble. You can also burn down forests. And then there's a few other kind of small examples here and there of it, but it's very underutilized, I find. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on it.
I think that, like you said, MCP's relationship with terrain is almost unique amongst miniature war games. Like, there isn't just the uh, destroying terrain. Like, one of the things that genuinely drew me into the game was Magneto being like, "What do you mean I can make terrain?
Yeah.
Sure, it's on a small base, but I can make terrain?
Oh
That's
man.
crazy."
Actually leading into that, like you can't destroy terrain in Hero Escape for good reason because you could just create holes in the board, but they started introducing characters that can put terrain on the board, and I remember seeing that with the new Renegade stuff and being like, "Oh my gosh, that is so
Oh
cool.
yes,
Why haven't we had more of that?"
the new magma crabs look so fun with that.
Yeah, you got those guys. You've got the water person putting out the water tiles, and then you've got the dragon with the like those aren't tiles, but they put down like vine glyphs and stuff. And it's like, yes, more stuff like this. Being able to change the physical board you're playing on mid game
Mhm.
is really cool.
Yeah,
I believe
it's
War Machine
such
had some of that too, actually, if
War
I remember
Machine
correctly. Like,
War Machine
Because there's
had
like forest and stuff you could put down, right?
So War Machine had the kind of weird like half versions of things. Like you could put up terrain that was usually temporary, like your cloud walls you would do, or
Yeah.
sand pillar or salt pillars, I think they were. Um, and I think there was like one army that could actually put down a permanent forest, and then the other one was burning forests were terrain features that technically legally counted as clouds. So spells that could dispel clouds, which were usually only things that could be put on the field by an opponent and were temporary, could dispel burning forests, which was the only way to take a piece of terrain that started the game on the board off the board.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah,
That interaction was so funny.
it was something. I did quite like that one.
Gone forest fire.
Yeah, the forest fire
Only
is gone,
you
and
can
so
stop
is the
forest fires.
forest. Um,
Smokey the Bear is simultaneously very proud of you and also gone into the ether.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic kind of. This was clearly not the intention for this design, but hey, you can take terrain off the board, and that's really cool, especially in a game like War Machine where nobody likes terrain and you want it as little of it as possible. Um,
Yeah.
but no, I think MCP does it in such a cool way, being able to like, and now we even have more characters that care about it, like Electro with his like he cares about the physical shape of the terrain, not even just the size numbers that are assigned to it. But
Oh
he
yes,
actually is
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
oh, you lined me up with one of those Fisk buildings. Well, I'm wherever I want to be now.
Yes,
Let's
I'm the
go.
fastest model in the game.
Yeah. Like stuff like that's really really cool, and then they did all the one shots, which kind of adds more layers of interaction to the terrain, and I'm so here for that. I mean, most of them are ridiculously unbalanced, but I'm so here for them. They're so much fun.
I still need to finish painting the Dracula castle.
Yeah, but I mean, even ones like the cars, like I only played like maybe 2 games where I used the car one shot because it's ridiculously unbalanced, but it's so much fun being able to just be like,
Oh,
you know what? I'm commandeering this car, I'm running someone over, I'm getting halfway up the board. It's
I
great.
had a phenomenal game on the Cars one shot where Amazing Spider-Man went from my back demons to the other back demons and then back.
Yep. Yeah, because you can
It
hop
was
in a car to drive,
ridiculous.
hop in a different car to drive back, and it's great.
Well, he was also ASM, so he was like web
Oh,
swinging.
he's
He
also
drove
got the web
three
swing.
cars, but
Okay, sure. Sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. No, like I think stuff like that's really really cool. And my mini rant is when they turned around and announced Shatterpoint back when this game was first coming out, and were like, AMG is making this. This is the people who made Marvel Crisis Protocol, and this is a game where we have Force users. Darth Vader, known for one of his first like fight scenes in Star Wars in Episode 5, he's just picking up a bunch of random stuff and tossing it at Luke. And then they didn't put that in the game, and I was so disappointed.
I will
Okay.
say that the model for Vader from the dual pack picking up and being ready to throw that piece of metal and that not being a part of the game was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, I will say though, this Star Wars does have a history of this though. Like when they were making the new Battlefront games,
Oh
and they're like,
no.
from the studio
No,
that made
no,
Battlefield with
no.
destructible terrain in the video game space, we will not. It doesn't fit the Star Wars universe to have destructible terrain. So this is
Oh.
a known factor.
I hate that. I hate that you're right about that. I hate that so much, actually.
Pattern.
Stop telling us there's precedent. It just makes me sadder.
Yeah. Well,
There
because
is precedent.
I even look at something like Legion, and I look at what was one of the funniest and coolest Force cards. Was it actually good? No, but in certain cases, Force Lift, just being able to be like that barricade there, this very specific terrain type that exists in this game. I'm gonna pick it up and move it, and it's just
Yeah, that was always fun.
like that was cool, that was flavorful, and I understand that balance wise sometimes stuff like that can be hard, but with Shatterpoint you have the crates, you have those little tiny crates that come in the starter box, there's tons of them, and you could very easily be like, those are the pieces of terrain that you can pick up and throw.
Mhm.
I'm not asking to be able to pick up and throw the buildings, because yeah, there are characters in Star Wars strong enough to do that, but it would be so few and far between, it wouldn't be worth having as its own mechanic really.
Mhm.
But being able to pick up those little crates and toss them around, that seems like it could be really fun. And it would make the boards for Shatterpoint feel a lot more interactive in terms of scatter terrain, because I find a lot of the scatter terrain on Shatterpoint kind of comes down to it's either in a position where it matters or it isn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and then
I'm
yeah.
absolutely with you there. The crates are more often than not either set dressing or the most annoying thing in the world if
Yeah.
they're just in a place where you can't shove someone off.
Yeah, it's like
And it
this is
opens up a lot
backstop
of depth to
or
be able to unbackstop someone by getting rid of what they're backstopped on.
that's the other thing, right? It suddenly becomes an interesting play for that too, is being able to be like, oh, that crate you're standing behind, what if it bashed you in the back of the skull? Like that
Yeah,
that sounds
and now I
great.
can shove you off.
Exactly. Oh man, and I think Legion, obviously being a larger scale game, would have a harder time implementing this, but I think Legion could also do it really, really well if they wanted to implement more abilities like that. And to kind of build on to that, the ability to throw other models around too is something that War Machine had, and they brought it over to MCP and they really expanded on it. But you don't see it very often in other war games, being able to actually pick up and move other models. Shatterpoint has it, but it's
Mhm.
pretty
Lord of the
rare.
Rings does too, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, because you can like pick up
Yeah,
dudes and throw them, right? Yeah.
yeah, like trolls and stuff can, or monsters can do that, or like fling them off to the side and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that
I
that
have played a
tracks.
few games with like bow mechanics as well, where you can just force someone to make a move action.
Yeah, there's like I'm thinking Legion had the force push, which obviously I mean it still has, but it went skyrocketed in points because it was probably one of the best things in the game. Um
Probably still is.
Probably still is, but
Yeah.
it's 40 points now, so um but yeah, like that's one of those things I would like to see games implement more in general is like push mechanics. Something I think Shatterpoint did actually very, very well. So
Yeah.
rare compliment for Shatterpoint from me. But yeah, like
Whoa,
I think that's
crazy.
something they actually implemented really well. It's like almost every model in the game has a way of moving the other player's models, and I think that's a really interesting, fun kind of that makes your positioning really matter, and that becomes one of those
Mhm.
games where I'm like, okay, this is a game I wouldn't want to see on a grid because it's really taking advantage of that freedom of movement.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that's enough for that one. Let's go ahead and jump back to Reid here. What do you want to talk about as your second topic here, Sarah?
Okay, so I'm gonna these basically cards and games that you can use for like one-off effects, or like you can represent them basically resources you can use one time per game type thing that give you like these powerful single time effects. So my main example is team tactic cards in Marvel Crisis, or Arcana cards from War Machine,
Yeah,
which is Grimkin's cards.
yeah,
Um,
which is
I
basically
really like
tactics
these like.
cards.
Oh yeah, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say that basically is just tactics cards from MCP. It's just only on the one faction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I just really like these big like one-time effects that can like warp the game state. Um, and I I'm specifically going to talk about the Grimkin Arcana ones because I really like the way they are implemented, where their cards essentially could only be played when your opponent does something to one of your models, essentially. And you get to play these cards that give you either a bonus or your opponent a negative. But like one of them was like when your opponent kills one of your guys, you a bunch of your stuff heals.
We don't need to talk about
Stuff like
sacrifice.
that.
We don't need to talk about
Sacrifice is an
sacrifice.
awesome card.
Okay, we
We need
don't
that in
we don't.
MCP.
No, dear God, we don't. Oh, that card is so
Yeah, no,
stupid. Um,
That sounds great. I love that.
it's a fun
We should
card.
have that.
no,
Give
so
that to Guardians.
he would play these models that have like a ton of health that you'd have to really chunk down. And the idea with that card is usually you kill one model at a time. So it's you play your entire turn and then your opponent plays their entire turn. It's not a alternating activations game. So you could do that. You could be like, I'm gonna put all my shots into this thing until it dies, and then I'll start working on something else. But then he'd play these little dudes who could jump in front and bodyguard shots, and their whole purpose was to bodyguard a shot and die when the thing you were actually trying to kill was almost dead. And now it's like, well,
Oh,
nothing I
now
could
it's
have
not
done about
almost
that.
dead anymore.
Yeah, and he'd keep them just out of range, so you can't just kill them first. You have to kill the thing you want to kill, and then
But
Phenomenal.
this is why I like these cards because it's kind of like you're setting up traps for your opponent to have to avoid themselves. So it's like sets up this little mini game you guys are playing.
Yeah, I
Um,
do think a
yeah,
lot of them conceptually were cool. Sacrifice just makes me salty, but a lot of the other ones were cool. And yeah, for the most part, I do like tactics cards in MCP, which I think is a very direct translation of the Arcana system. Being like, yeah, here are my five once per game abilities that I'm gonna pop, and they're gonna, usually you want to pick ones that are gonna impact the game in a big way. So yeah, I do think that's a really really interesting one, and I personally have very mixed feelings on those sorts of systems, but I totally understand the appeal of them.
I too am very mixed on these, but only because I am the kind of RPG player to end a game with 500 healing potions because I'm saving them for when I really need them.
Yep, yep. There's definitely some
There is
decision
always the
paralysis.
feeling of like, is this the right time to use this effect when
Yeah,
it's a once per game thing?
no, I've
The number
definitely
of
felt
times I've
that.
gone back and been like, should I have braced that, or should I have used this tactics card here, and thought maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I lost the game because I used my once per game effect in the wrong spot.
Yeah, no,
I
you
mean that's
absolutely
that,
can.
that's why I like them too, though, is because like it makes you really think about it.
Yeah, I mean it definitely increases the level of player skill required, right? Um,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do think you can run into the issue of some of them can be gotchas sometimes, but that can also just be worked into model rules, so that can kind of go either way.
yeah, those things definitely do need to be open information
Yeah.
for them to
yes.
be. I've never been a fan of actual trap cards like from Yu-Gi-Oh outside of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, like
Like,
if you go into a game of MCP and your opponent doesn't have to reveal their five tactics cards to you, suddenly I hate them.
yeah.
Um,
No, that'd be crazy.
yeah, it's
Like the
like, do
Grimkin
you have
Arcana,
sacrifice?
you flat out saw
Okay,
them on the table, and you'd have to walk into
okay.
the traps.
Here's my idea. Okay, there is a Deadpool tactics card that you don't have to reveal to your opponent, but
Oh
it's the
God.
only tactics card you don't have to reveal to your opponent,
Okay. Oh, I
so they
see.
know which one it is.
No, 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 no. Deadpool has two or three tactics cards, but you can only bring one of them in a game. So you know it's
Oh,
one of these two or three cards.
see, now that's actually good, and I don't like that.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I
see,
think
what
that's
you're
I
great.
wanted this
describing
to
is
be bad and funny.
what it's bad and funny, but in the worst way because this is only trolling new players.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. That's
That
fair.
is the worst.
Oh God, what have we
Yeah,
done?
no, this is bad actually.
Okay, so what other games would we like to see stuff like that in? Because one of the things that I think that that sort of system brings to the table, because I'm not a huge fan of the Arcana cards or most of the like generics in MCP, but I love when they allow it to have character or team specific events that can really be like, this is a powerful moment we want you to experience on the table. Like I love the idea of just like, yeah, Helios Laser is a card. I'm going to build a super crazy one-off attack that only Iron Man can do. Any of the versions of Iron Man, but
Mhm.
only Iron Man can do this. I think those are my favorite implementations of them. So for myself, like I think something like this in Star Wars could be really cool. Either of the Star Wars games where you just kind of have like, yeah, Luke or Vader are going to do these really cool things. You kind of get it with the what are they called in
Battle tactics. I was just about to say
In the
no,
battle
I
tech,
getting
wasn't
it with the
actually
battle.
thinking
Oh,
battle tactics. I was thinking the cards that determine priority in
oh,
Legion.
order cards.
Order cards, yeah, those
oh
guys.
yeah, order.
Yeah,
Those are basically like team tactic cards if you
Yeah,
think
they're
about it.
just very fixed on when you play them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, although the battle tactics are, I would love to see more expansion in that in Shatterpoint to be more like tactics cards, where they
Yeah,
are in like not randomly being activated because I don't like the random timing or the fixed timing from uh Shatterpoint or Legion as much as I do like choosing to use them.
yeah, I agree. No,
I would just like tactics cards in Shatterpoint actually.
honestly,
That's something I miss.
yeah, no, I think Shatterpoint is a system that could benefit from having a small pool of tactics cards available to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
no, it's definitely an interesting one because it does add a whole layer of complexity. Like I would be hesitant to put it in a game that's meant to be more streamlined and snappy. Like I'd be really scared to put it in something like Heroescape because while I think you could do cool things with it, I think it would bog it down and make it a lot more complicated when that's supposed to be a very simple game.
And
Yeah,
likewise,
agreed.
I'd hate to see it in a very crunchy full game like BattleTech.
Oh
Like
God,
that
no.
would, yeah.
Now, how do we compare it
I
to
was about to
something?
suggest it in Middle Earth, and even that's probably a bit crunchy for it.
Well, when you start
How
getting into the like Games Workshop games, you start looking at like their stratagems, which aren't
exactly
once
what I was
per
gonna say.
game, but they are very similar effects.
They are,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is like the like how do we feel about them compared to something like the stratagem system, where you have a resource and you have a pool of effectively cards available to you, and you can reuse those cards, but they all have a different resource cost.
I
Um,
found that, at least in my experience, the stratagems had an issue, which you do also run into with the tactics cards in MCP, of there are 30 options available to me, and here are the
Yeah.
four that I actually care about.
yeah, no, I think that's one of the big issues with Warhammer from the last time I played it, which to be fair wasn't the current edition, but there were just too many stratagems and most of them were trash. Um,
Well, like my biggest gripe about stratagems is, unlike tactics cards, you don't pick the 5 at the start. So as an opponent, you have to go like, okay, Space Marines, what 60 stratagems do you have access to this game, and what might you use?
yeah,
Yeah, there
Um,
is the actual like paragraphs that your opponent must read before every game,
yeah.
before you
yeah,
use all of your command points to use a reroll and no stratagems.
Yeah, no, for sure.
yeah,
It's something. Um yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think
yeah.
it's an interesting
I would like it
system,
more if you had to choose 5.
but I think the cards idea, like aside from like Shatterpoint, maybe I have a hard time thinking of more systems I would like to see implement it. I agree that Warhammer could implement their version of it better.
Yeah,
But there are very few that I can think of where I'm like, oh man, this would be sick if it had this sort of ability. Um
So get
Flashpoint
in the
kind of has it
comments
with
and tell
special
us some
orders.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know what you guys think down below. What sorts of games might benefit from that a lot, for sure. But yeah, I think we'll from there we'll move on to our final mechanic here. Alex, you're up with this one. So what was
That's
your second
me.
pick?
My second pick is, there is a mechanical thing that's happening. It's a mechanical thing in games, but it is more of a philosophical thing that I want to see in more games. It is board creation, specifically in HeroScape. If you've ever built a HeroScape board, it is actually a
Oh,
part of the game.
sorry,
There is
Alex, you
so
cut out
much
for a
like
second there if you
all
want
those
to.
modular pieces going together. Oh, sorry. I
Yeah, I think it
will
was just my
restart
internet, but
that. All right. I will restart that section then.
no worries.
All right. So my second topic is more of a philosophical thing, although there is a mechanical part. It's specifically board creation in HeroScape. I think that uh, building a board in HeroScape is part of the game. You know, sitting down and snapping all those pieces together is part of making a fun part of the game of HeroScape. And I think that a lot of war games either make board creation like really, really strict. You can look at like Tournament Warhammer tends to have a lot of very cookie cutter, cut and paste rectangles that are ruins and such that make up a very strict board.
Whoa, whoa,
Or
whoa. Those rectangles are L's most of the time,
my
I
mistake,
think.
my mistake.
Come on.
L's are two rectangles. Come on, man. Um,
Um,
and
uh,
and even in MCP, a game I love so much and do enjoy making boards for, like, it is kind of just, here's a bunch of terrain, go crazy. I do think that HeroScape hits a good happy middle ground of structure and freedom. You know, there are ways that those pieces fit together, and you can mess with that, but there is a lot of customizability there.
yeah, I mean they have like official layouts and stuff that you can use for tournaments if you want to have like a really clean setup, or you can kind of go wild and you can build some really crazy, fantastic boards. Like if you just do a Google search for like cool hero skateboards, there's so much. There's some really amazing things people have made with that system. Um, But then like yeah, you have your ability to have a more, this is a normal board. This has a normal amount of height on it. This has a normal amount of water and everything else. Um,
One of my favorite like hobby stories is when I was a very young kid, which immediately dates me as a human being. I saw a hero skateboard that was, I want to say, at least 20 levels tall in some places.
yep.
Like it was massive, and it was immediately like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Period. And I think that hero skateboards, the way that they are built, are really eye-catching, and they really like help sell the game in a visual sense. Like it feels so fully and complete when you're playing on a hero skateboard. It just feels really good.
Sure, for
And
sure.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of games can do well with expanding their terrain into making it part of the game. Like make setting up a board fun.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I mean, one of the interesting ones I think for that topic is looking at BattleTech, where BattleTech kind of has its pre-made mats that you're kind of expected to play on. But what a lot of BattleTech players do is they actually build hero skateboards because they're just so much cooler, and it's still a hex grid system, so you can
Absolutely.
totally do that. And I just think that's a really really neat example of like this is something players want because it's such a cool thing. So even though BattleTech isn't really meant to use HeroScape tiles, the community has turned around and said, "Yeah, but it's cool. We want to do it." Um,
Mhm.
so I will say it's really hard to work that in. Like if you're not playing on a grid system, for example, it becomes a lot more complicated. Like you have stuff like MCP where obviously there's a lot of board variety, but a lot of them end up feeling kind of the same by the end of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Electro or Magneto, in which case you care a lot about the small differences between boards. But um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, I think you also have something like Flashpoint is kind of interesting for that, where like because they have their cube system, you're very much encouraged to set up terrain in certain ways, but then the terrain itself is actually very free flow on how you can play with those ways you're supposed to set it up. Like you can have things half in a cube, half or not. You can have your scatter terrain be, overlapping between two different cubes, things like that. So you still have some flexibility there, even though it's got a very rigid, like, yeah, this is the board you're playing on. Your ways of placing terrain will absolutely impact the game and can be very interesting.
Oh man, now I want to set up a flashpoint table, but all the terrain's at a Dutch angle.
It's it's actually a little problematic. That is the one issue is you can't like everything basically all of your things that you can stand on need to be at 90-degree angles because otherwise it just like you just invalidate cubes.
I
Um
will make it work.
all right, you can make it legal. But yeah, what about you, Reed? Can you think of anything that could use a more interesting board expansion or like board building experience?
Um, it's a bit hard for me because this is one of my least favorite things about
The actual
wargaming is
setup,
setting up
yeah.
boards.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess
so
that's part of it. Like, what would make building a board more fun to you?
honestly, just simplicity. It wouldn't like. I don't know if I would have much patience for setting up pure skateboards because there's a lot of tiles you gotta click
There
together.
is. Yeah.
But I can see the
It is a
appeal.
barrier to playing
I can
HeroScape
definitely see that.
sometimes, right? Like have it how much time it takes for setup and tear down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
War Machine player over here saying he would prefer having boards with no terrain or any setup. Um,
I still like playing on boards with terrain. I just don't want to be the one to set it up.
no, I gotcha.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
What
yeah,
about
yeah. Like it's not that I. Yeah, I like terrain and everything, but
what about systems
it's a hassle.
where setting up terrain is actually part of the round zero? Like you and your opponent both get to place pieces of terrain on the board in ways that will impact the game as it goes on. So you have to be strategic. Like that is part of the skill now is how you set up the board. I'm thinking
Mhm.
stuff like X-Wing, where both players get to put down a number of rocks and stuff like that.
My
Yeah, I like
information on
that.
this.
Oh.
my information on this might be a little outdated, but Age of Sigmar has a lot of like faction terrain pieces that get set up with your army, if I'm remembering
Right.
correctly,
No, you're
which I
right.
think was
Yeah.
always fun and interesting.
Yeah, no, that is.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because I've definitely seen some of those, and that is something that's cool. So yeah, no, I'm down for more stuff like that. Like we were even talking about it earlier, how cool I thought it was when HeroScape started adding stuff that lets you change the game or change the board
Yeah.
partway through the game, and I think that's another thing that we need to see more from games is like as we kind of move into the current era of wargaming where we're starting to see those types of things more and more. I think it's a really exciting era for board building. I think they're getting more interesting with every game that comes out. We're seeing more things that can impact the physical board itself. Obviously, MCP
Yeah.
being one of the big ones for that.
Yeah,
But
like I'm very interested in like stuff that affects the board state as you play, like you mentioned, putting down stuff, like or destroying buildings and everything like that.
Cloud Wall.
Uh,
But
I also love cloud walls. I love them.
Wow.
yeah, but yeah,
uh,
no, I think it's an interesting one, but it also kind of comes back to the grid discussion of in order to like apply it to a game, a lot of the time you are revamping that entire game. So there's definitely some interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of games out there that I really want to see making a board be more part of the game. Like I would love to have a game of MCP where me and my opponent both build the board together. That sounds fun.
No, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah,
I
if like you
totally
do it
agree.
as a turn zero thing, I like that. Like or like Jason mentioned, where you placing board pieces back and forth.
yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's an interesting one, and I think that's a good spot to end things off here. So definitely let us know down below if there are anything you guys think would have added to this discussion. If there's any games that would have worked really well with some of the mechanics we were talking about, or if there's any mechanics that you guys really like and want to see in more games, definitely drop some comments down below. I'm going to be very curious to hear what everyone's saying on this one. But yeah, as always, Reid, Alex, thank you guys for joining me for this. Much appreciated. And do you guys
thanks
have
for having me.
any
Yeah, thanks for
closing
having us.
thoughts here?
Uh,
Oh, no thoughts, head's empty.
my only thought in my empty head. Buff Miss Marvel.
Buff Miss Marvel.
Yeah,
God dang
but
it.
the only thing I was thinking was Buff King is the
I
king of
knew you were
nothing.
going to
So
say that. All right. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to call it for episode 2 of Roll for Priority. So if you guys have enjoyed, if you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Helps us out a bunch. Lets us know you guys are enjoying the stuff we're throwing out here. This is going to be a bi-weekly series for now, so there's going to be plenty of more of these episodes to come. And we also do battle reports and things like that. So if you're a fan of any of that sort of thing, feel free to jump on in. But that's going to do it for now. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.